Look at verse 4. Anyone who commits sin violates the Torah, for sin is the transgression of the Torah. This is one of the verses, for many of us, I know, that called us out of lawlessness and syncretism and paganism, because we knew that if we're lawless, then we're sinning. And we know that Yahusha didn't die to give us grace so that we could break the Torah and be in sin. But in effect, that is what the institutionalized church teaches. But this very verse right here exposes the institutionalized church. Anyone who commits sin, now sin is defined as what? Not going to church on Wednesday night, dancing, wearing a skirt above the knee. No, sin is defined as violating the Torah. Plain and simple. So did Yahusha die so that you could not be keeping the Torah? Well, the institutionalized church takes this and says yes. But the scripture says no, for sin is defined as a transgression of the Torah. We know that Yahusha didn't die so that we could transgress the Torah. This verse was one of the many verses as I came into observance of the mitzvot that really, really guided me and many others. But it's been hijacked. It's been hijacked in the Messianic movement to lead people into the interpretation of what Torah is by unregenerate Jews that follow a Judaism interpretation of Torah. But Torah is Yahweh's teaching and instruction within the framework of covenant. And you cannot divorce the Kohen Hagadol from the covenant that his blood enacted and then redefine Torah outside of that. That is what the Messianic movement has done. They've redefined Torah by Judaism standards. But we're held to a higher standard because he is with us now. Because we don't see him as he was, like Judaism, dead and in the grave. We see him as he is, resurrected and dwelling inside of us. Therefore, Torah has to be defined within the context of the blood-ratified covenant that the Melchizedek Kohen Hagadol established, which is Book of the Covenant Torah. That's the framework. So now the road gets a lot narrower, doesn't it? Because you are violating the Torah if you are outside its boundaries. Outside of its boundaries, on one side of the broad road, is lawlessness, syncretism, and paganism. Welcome to the 21st institutionalized church of the 21st century. But on the other side of the broad road is Torah defined by Judaism that's unregenerate, that doesn't even recognize covenant framework of Yahusha the Melchizedek. So now the narrow road that leads to life is Melchizedek, Book of the Covenant Torah that the Mashiach established. That is true Torah because it's identified by him himself today, presently. So you've got two lawless camps. You see, what happened is many jumped from syncretism and paganism, and they grabbed hold of a life buoy, so they thought, thrown at them by a Messianic Jew that was drowning in the waters of Judaism's interpretation of Torah. And many people just switched religions from one lawless religion to a Judaism's form. It has a form of godliness, but it denies its power. And then going around with Torah terrorism. But Torah outside of the covenant is in fact what? A curse. Cursed is everyone who does not continue in all things written in the book of the law to do them, Galatians tells you. Identified that all of the curses are in the book of the law. And if you are saying that you need to keep the book of the law in Mashiach, then you have put yourselves under a curse. There are no curses, plural, in the book of the covenant, Torah, Exodus 24:8. You see, this narrows things down. You can't excuse away the change that has been implemented in Scripture. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 12 plainly states that there was a change in the Torah that's always been there. Where has it always been? Right there in Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Shiloh until meaning impending change, the Messiah, Moshiach comes, and there's your change. It's always been there in Torah, but it's only implemented by the one who has the authority to implement it. You're not changing it. The one that has the authority is implementing the change that has already been written and coded in the very Torah that you and I are to follow. You see, we cannot fall into the church or rabbinic trap of a synonymous book of the law and book of the covenant, because that's the broad road that leads to destruction. It's a form of godliness, yet it denies its very power, because the power is Torah, book of the covenant, because that's what the blood ratified. Outside of that, you're lawless. You're lawless in syncretism and paganism on this broad road, or you're lawless with a form of godliness, rabbinic Torah, yet you deny its power. And you'll use it as a terrorist to try and what? Judge people. And that's what you have. Classic Torah terrorism. Classic. You see it everywhere. And it leads to the rabbinic Levitical hierarchy. We have to be careful, because if you fall into the church or rabbinic trap, which is the trap of a synonymous book of the law and a synonymous book of the covenant, you're actually in sin. Why are you in sin? Because they're not performing the Sabbath animal sacrifices, are they? No. They're not visiting priests in matters of judgment. So they're not, in fact, following the very unchanged Torah that they espouse. Do you see the hypocrisy in that? They're espousing an unchanged Torah, yet they're not following that unchanged Torah that demands for sacrifices on Sabbath. It demands that you go and see a priest concerning matters of judgment. You see, it's no different. It's just the theology of picking and choosing which commandments apply today based upon what? Logic and reason. Making excuses because it's not convenient, or maybe it hasn't even been constructed yet. Thus, they condemn themselves. And this is the generation that gets to witness this hypocrisy. You see, you cannot end up in either broad road of lawlessness, because either you're disregarding it all in syncretism as you slither up on Santa's lap, or you disregard it all as you embrace the rabbis and a form of godliness, yet it denies the power, which is Yahusha. If you're not rightly dividing the Torah, 2 Timothy 2:15, Hebrews 7:12, and Genesis 49:10, between the book of the covenant and the book of the law, you're still in sin and you've put yourself under a curse. It's no different than if you were in the church. You've just joined a Jewish religion instead of a Christian religion. You see that? Galatians 3:10. For as many are as the works of the law are under the curse. For it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law, thus identified to do them. It's amazing.